Yes, yes. Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, Faiz. How are you?
I'm fine.
That's good. Thanks for joining us today, Faiz. I know it's a early morning for you, and you are joining us from Pakistan today.
Yeah, yes, Pakistan today. Thank you.
Excellent. So I have started the recording, Faiz. Without any further delay, I would like to hand over a session back to you. So feel free to share your screen, introduce yourself, and again, on behalf of our Pakistan user group, we all are really would like to thanks for your presence today.
So let me share my screen quickly.
Sure.
Let me slide deck now. You're able to see the slide deck?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, good morning from Pakistan, and thanks uh, for inviting me for the session today. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you all the partners or supporting organizations who have helped Pakistan User Group to basically have this fantastic session. And for next 4 days, there will be a series of sessions that will be held. Um, in this session today, I will be talking about do's and don'ts as solution architect. So these are the things that is recommended in best practice, and these are the things that are not recommended. I will also be taking through all the challenges that I have personally faced, and your pathway to become basically a fast track recognized solutions architect. Yeah, I'm wearing this shirt right now, and you can see I have this fast track recognized architect. I got this last year. So I'm basically based in the UK. I work with Mohammed Atif, who is also a moderator in this call closely for Magic Global UK. So I'm director and senior solutions architect at Magic Global UK. I have about 10 years of experience in Dynamics 365, and previously to that, I have been working as solution architect for last 15 years. Um, and yes, I have implemented three fast track, basically large scale enterprise projects. Specialization is healthcare, public sector, manufacturing, and financial services. Yeah. Yeah. So this is me, Faiz Mohammed. I will just go through basically what are the pitfalls and what are the success, what are the top tips of implementing basically successful ERP or Dynamics implementations. According to Gartner, um, there is a study which says that 55% to 75% of the major transformation project do fail. And basically, unless we react and we don't focus our efforts on basically implementing focus solutions, and we focus on the digital transformation and return for investment, we can make a real impact. And there are some top tips. When in any digital transformation, we should always focus on the MVP solution. And we start with an MVP solution. And once we have delivered an MVP solution, we go and iterate. So, of my large previous implementations, we did started with an MVP as a phase one, and then phase two, where we basically, as phase one, we implemented the back office finance and ERP implementation. But as we go along the project, we bring on board more and more services. So MVP is the most important part. Uh, there was another one, like many organizations or customers would like to have excessive documentation. In this digital world and cloud-based solutions, we should avoid writing excessive documentation, but rather do system walkthroughs and basically get the user engagement, get basically make sure the user adoption is high. These are the things that should be highly focused. You do need documentations for integration architectures and basically have a solution architecture, but avoid writing excessive documentation. So things which are configuration, we should not be writing something which is out of the box. So yeah. The other thing is that if you want to have a basically a successful implementation, it needs to be customer centric, where you do a series of walkthroughs, series of workshops, and series of sessions where you walk through different strategy across the board. Uh, the next one I want to talk about basically what is a solution architect, what basically as a solution architect, what are your what are your main skill sets? So as a solution architect, the main thing is that solution architect works with project managers, delivery architect, and rest of the team. And he's very much hands-on and have both functional and technical knowledge and works across basically not just dynamics, but also non-dynamics solutions. One of the core things that the solution architect can add is solution envisioning. So when you have set of requirements, solution architect will be able to map them to Microsoft business applications, whether it's sales, field service, or it's in the ERP side where you have basically a financial or supply chain modules. But as a solution architect, solution envisioning start by mapping requirements to what is there. And once, and if any of the requirements are not met, then as part of the next phase, the solution architect will go for more on Azure-based solutions, which are not in within the core system, but outside of this. As a solution architect, collaboration, coordination, basically communication and feedback, problem solving, these are the soft skills that solution architect will have. He works alongside the team and make sure basically best practices are followed. Uh, in this one, I want to talk about the success by design and how can you implement um, various phases of basically a Dynamics implementation. The main thing is that you start by initiating the process where basically you have set of requirements. You, as a solution architect, you have engaged with the business. You have functional consultants and business analysts who were helping in requirement gathering. And solution architect will help doing the fit gap analysis, and he can actually say that some of these requirements, either it's a field service or or basically it can be met by a certain module within the system. And at the end of the initiate module, the solution architect will basically produce a solution blueprint. In the solution blueprint, I have done many solution blueprints for my implementations. But basically, right at the start, within 6 weeks after the project had started, a solution blueprint is produced, and it's like a conceptual, high-level solution walkthrough, where basically solution architect can connect the dots and basically identify the number of users, number of licenses, what securities they have, what modules of Dynamics will use, what Azure based integrations that will be adopted. Do we need Exchange? Do we need SharePoint? What data platform will have? Do we need data lake, dual write? But at the start, at a very high level, solution architect should be able to produce the solution blueprint document. Microsoft has provided sample templates for that document, and I highly recommend basically if we follow this and basically use those templates. They are all available on the GitHub as well. In the next one, when the build gets started, then the solution architect then gets involved by the team. Now that the requirements are there, the fit gaps have been done, and basically you have prioritized with the business that these are the high priority gaps that will be implemented. And during fit gap, you can also work with the business to identify the core solution, identify which parts are priority one, or which parts are which of the requirements or gaps will be part of the MVP. So yeah, and then solution architect will work with the rest of the team, technical architects and the development team, and work on various strategies. The solution architect should also look into having series of workshops. So assuming it's a data migration workshop, so a data lead from customer side, we'll go and basically walk through different data models and data requirements, plus how many dry runs you have and data volumes. And these are the things solution architect will go. And as part of each of these work sessions, whether it's a data module or integration or it's basically performance, for each of the modules, solution architect will do series of workshops and produce deliverables, which then feed to the rest of the system. Now that the design and the build has commenced and it's about to basically finish, towards the end, um, as a solution architect and the PM, they get involved with basically getting the team on the customer side ready, having the sit started, having the UAT planned, make sure that UAT success criteria is met, and basically prepare for the go live scenarios. Solution architect will also work with cutover planning and make sure that within the cutover, the right dependencies are defined. Uh, and once the system has gone live, the last operation is that what do we do? How do we monitor the system? Initially, during the first few weeks of the implementation of go live, like up to 2 months, for example, you can have an early live support as a partner giving to customers. And as part of that early live support, you have basically more team members working on a project. You have monitoring implemented. You have a mechanism where bugs or tickets are logged and they are being operated in a timely fashion. So these are the strategies that solution architect gets involved and produce series of deliverables. Any question up till this point from anyone? Check if I'm still online. Ask if you are there. You are there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are all
Yes.
here. Carry on first. We'll ask the question in the end. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah. So this is the main thing. The next thing is once basically once we have operated, I want to go back and look at some of the core things where people often make mistakes, and how do we how do we make sure that the criteria we set goes through a successful implementation of your Dynamics projects. um, I will just talk about do's and don'ts, which is what about this session is for. um, many organizations, many consultants focus on the requirements. Whatever the customer has asked for, they go and basically provide the details or start solutionizing. That's not right. We need to understand what our boundaries are. We don't focus on an unknown future requirement. So there is a requirement that will come after go live, but we need to make sure this requirement um, is not ignored, but we don't need to start basically putting our solution so customized that it basically challenges the future. Um, and we need to focus on the current situation, where what the current requirements are, what is the business, which requirements will have the most business impact. And one of the thing is that during the solution envisaging or during the requirement side, we should not go and basically make any assumptions. Uh, and sometimes clients only give you a certain requirement, but we need to go beyond those requirements and basically ask for what else that has been missed. So now that we have understand the problem, and in this one, like I will be talking about how do you convert requirement to a design solution. So many of the questions we ask to the customer is basically what is the real pain and why this should be done in this way. Like if a customer has a requirement, sometimes customer try to um, you know put your solution in a way where it's more focused on their existing system. So and if we solve their existing needs, then they should just remain in the current system. So we need to make sure that we go beyond and ask like what are the three more critical pain points. Uh, And yeah, and how do we, if we are providing a solution, how we will work to provide it. Um, the next thing is that while doing the requirements and the gap design sessions, we need to look for dependencies on other solutions. So we have in the UK done a number of healthcare implementations. We know, for example, there is a need in the UK for dispensing pharmaceutical products in the UK. They need a set of integrations which is only provided by NHS. But there are other partners who actually provide those integrations. Um, so yes, so we need to look on dependencies rather than creating a database of medicinal products within Dynamics. We should try to, or basically, if you have a requirement to do an address lookup, you should avoid creating a database within Dynamics containing UK, basically, or Pakistan, or any overseas or the United States addresses. You should look for anything which is standard out of the shelf and try to integrate that. Um, as part of this requirements, we should also consider the performance impact. So sometimes we customize too much. We focus on, for example, Canvas app. Like Canvas app is for large, or basically small use cases, which will basically quickly develop and deliver the business needs. But if you're looking for large scale Canvas enterprise level solutions, then you need to look beyond what else is there within Dynamics platform. And yeah, like we should also consider storage impacts. So many organizations, in Dynamics, whether it's CE or finance and operations, there is now a limit which Microsoft charges, whether it's a file storage within customer engagement or it's within finance and operations, the attachments are stored. We should look for storing outside of Dynamics as well, because that will be much cheaper. So there will be some storage considerations that needs to be considered. And yes, the last thing, like based on all these requirements, you need to look at basically standard versus out of the box. If anything which is available out of the box, we should go and use those. We should also consider licensing implications. So I know, for example, the project was more of a sales side, or and there was a need for smart scheduling. So you need to look on the requirements and uh, whether you need a full customer engagement license, or you can meet your needs within just the sales module. Um, so yeah, these are the things that needs to be considered as part of solution envisioning and requirement and gap analysis. So yeah, basically don't customize too much. Look out of the box and ensure that the licensing impacts are basically considered. In the next slide, I will be talking through data migration. So this is my personal basically challenges that we face in other implementations. And this is, if we follow these cycles, this is our path for being fast recognized architect. Because what you do, you basically in your projects, you consider all the pitfalls. In many data migration, we start too early. We don't consider on the data maps modules. We don't understand. We don't define the data templates, or sometimes we define, but our system is continuously basically being developed, and more data fields are being added. So how do we define basically the customer that they need to get this information? So so as part of this, the most important thing is to create uh, basically data models, and make sure that these models are signed off. So it could be set of Excel sheets. So we need customers data, we need works order data in CEO, we are migrating an ERP solution, so we need some open sales order from the legacy system. For that, we need to define those templates. Microsoft has provided certain ways to where we can basically extract these templates directly from the system. But then you don't load all the data sets. So there is an aspect of basically ensuring that basically you define the limited set of data that will be used for data migration. Um, And the core challenges that I faced in my implementation is that we should not just look at doing data migration in UAT one off and then straight away go on production. We should look for a series of dry runs, maybe at the very early start, even when the fields are only um, 20% or 30% of the fields. Maybe you had 20 plus data migration deliverables, and basically you need to focus on the core ones first. Maybe get customers addresses, and so that they get started. So you do start with 10%, 50%, maybe 75%, and at least three dry runs should be done before you look at signing off from the customer. And one of the most important thing, like my personal advice for any data migration, is to make sure that after every dry run, you get a physical sign off from the customer, because in many instances, the customer doesn't sign off, and we go to the next dry run where if there are challenges, then customer will go back. And if customer is not signing off, then we should not proceed for the next one, especially on production until in the UAT, the data migration that has been done, um, assuming it's anonymized. So it's in the data migration items, the data, while the data is exactly like production, but it's anonymized, where all the personal identifier information has been removed, and you basically look at the pitfalls and make sure that data migration is done and you get a physical sign-off. One of the other challenges was in one of the Dynamic C implementation. We had like 100 million transactions or 100 million work orders that needs to be loaded on the system. We looked at loading these orders. We had a very good team member who was there, and he basically supported us with this module, like with more concurrent modules. So Dynamics gives you these manage principles, and we call it app registration accounts. But with Dynamics, you can scale up really heavy, and you can define concurrent loading, for example. So rather than doing a sequential one record, or you can actually load in batches. And once you have batches, you can then run 8 batches at the same time. Each batch contain, say, 1,000 records. But then you can also create each of these batches run in with parallelism, where you can actually load this data more in a timely fashion. So when the data migration happens, the next do's are basically setting up the workflows. So that's another very important one. You should go and disable the workflows. If your workflows are being fired while doing data migration, then your data migration items will be slow. You should turn off any, if you're migrating data to C, um, and assuming finance and operations, you need the relevant customers. Then you should load those customers directly in finance and operations. Don't rely on dual write, or basically post dual write, post data migration, or once loaded in C, you should load them separately. So these are the things. One of the thing is we should avoid really doing a one-off data migration. I have seen in like in recent implementation where another customer, where basically when we jumped in, we saw data migration was being done on production, or there was even no UAT. So we should really avoid these things, and avoid also the sequential loading. While doing the data migration, we should do performance testing and ensure that if we have these many transactions to load, we really know that this will be loaded in 6 hours, 8 hours, or will it take a week. So yeah, these are the migration do's, don'ts. I will go to the next slide. The next one is my favorite topic, integration. So I have done lots and lots of work around integration, especially these are my personal things, favorites. Like whenever you look at integration, you look for scalability, and basically don't just consider now. So we went for an implementation where we started with, say, 5,000 work orders that needs to be integrated throughout a day. But but I know that in basically another 12 months time, it will be 15,000 work orders. In 18 months, it will be 25,000 work orders that needs to be integrated with external systems. So what we did put on the design was basically focused on the on horizontal scaling. So when we have large orders at that time, system just scales horizontally, um, and rather than creating using one stream of integration and focusing on basically optimizing one solution, we actually scaled horizontally, and we put more and more um, basically parallelism and basically latency and lots of other additional things that were added. So yeah, scalability is important. We should avoid vertical scaling and favor horizontal scaling. For any integration scenarios, many people, like if you want to send an SMS out of the system, I know Microsoft is doing this like ACS, which is Azure Communication Services, or you want to use Twilio or Infobip, or other integration scenarios to send, for example, SMS messages. You should really avoid writing real-time integrations. They should run at the back end. You create certain activities in Dynamics, and or those can trigger workflows behind the scene. But but for example, for payment scenarios or for CFNO integrations, which are very critical, on those cases you should only write focus on point-to-point integration and avoid yeah, basically avoid point-to-point unless it's real time. We should look for taking advantage of the cloud storage. Microsoft will be basically the hosting costs within Dynamics implementations are increasing as well. Within finance and operations, Microsoft has also put, like in a preview, you can see that it tells you the capacity what the system has. So if you are looking for long-term solutions, look for cloud storage. Try to put these documents which are not there in the system outside of the system. Um, for example, we are working on this archiving strategy where with Microsoft, where basically a series of archiving criteria will be set, and at certain point in time, those documents or those records will be moved out of Dynamics, go to Data Lake, which could be Microsoft Managed Data Lake or Customer Managed Data Lake. From there, you can basically put um, the reports or use Power BI to display the same information. So yeah, the one thing is that don't create unnecessary bottlenecks as well, because many integrations have single point of failure. Like we create this single facade pattern, like everything has to go through this single layer. We should really avoid doing that single point of failure. Doing more caching and redundancy is very important. So these are the do's and don'ts for. I will go to this is again like my other implementation. I wanted to just give my personal thing, like within Dynamics. We had large scale project which has lots and lots of these services, either with NHS. We work directly with NHS, whether it's NHS, ERS, EPS systems. So what we focused on was writing series of microservices. And each of these microservices basically have their own lifetime. They increase the request, they go and basically connect to these third-party services. But but when Dynamics has to connect, Dynamics is not connecting to these remote services directly. Dynamics only connect to this API management or API gateway. And behind API gateway, we then had these microservices. And with that mechanism, we were able to replace many of these services. So we had like um, a dispensing solution, or we had like SMS providers. So within few basically days, we were able to simply change the services, this microservice to another microservice. But this architecture will allow you to basically create different versions as well. While the legacy system, while it was Dynamics, some of the services are pointing to service one, while some are pointing to service two. So yeah, this is quite a handy tool and highly recommended for any real-time integration scenarios with Dynamics. You should definitely look at doing it. The last is one of my last slide. This is mainly around cutover and go live planning. So if we have looking for basically cutover, so while you are focusing on data migration and integration scenarios, requirements, and build, at some point in time towards the go live, you need to start looking at a cutover. Um, Basically, it's normally recommended to have at least two cutovers before go live. Cutover, you can create a separate environment, and this environment should not be the UAT environment. It's another environment where you carry out the exact list of tasks that will be executed as part of the cutover. Microsoft has defined very nice templates. I have also adopted it and basically added more and more dependencies features. But basically, a cutover will have list of tasks. It does not just include the technical. This is another mistakes people do. They only focus and look what basically we need to deploy this. This is a sequence of solution deployment, but we forget about the business. The business also have to sign off at each and every stage of the whenever a critical milestone is met, the business needs to be involved, and they are the ultimate people who will provide sign off. So for cutover, the very important thing is the scope. We look for dependencies. We set up roles, responsibilities. Cutover is not just with solution architect; it's the whole team. For a successful UR team implementation, the whole team is responsible for the successful implementation. And solution architect will guide the team. He can define those cutover templates. I'm sure many of the Magic team here who have worked with myself and Atif on this, but yes, yeah, the most important is define those task templates, define those dependencies, specify the time. So, for example, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you need three solutions needs to be installed. But you define your estimated time, and then within the cutover template, you will have, for example, if it takes about 1 hour to deploy this, then at 7 o'clock, then you have another team member lined up to do certain activities. But it's a combined team effort. Yeah, the last thing was basically in a cutover plan, you need to have at least two cutovers prior to go live, and every cutover you will learn from your things that were not on time, or you define and redefine the plan, and as you go through for this one, it will make your go live successful. Um, what are the pitfalls? People often don't call dependencies. Business are not aligned. So now that the solution is deployed, you need business to log in the system, check out their access rights, or do some smoke testing, like not update creating transactions, but at least they will be able to do some very visible things. Um, on the other things that people don't go at all, any cutover, just move it straight to production scenarios and start basically talking about, yeah, go to production and without a cutover, and then in production they make mistakes, and basically maybe in production an issue is identified where one of the data migration items were missed, and because there was no proper cutover, then you have to do a data migration post go live, which then have its whole challenges. So yeah, the cutover is very important. I think this is the last slide. Uh, yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much for inviting me. And yeah,
Thank
I
you
will.
so much, Faiz, for this much informative session. Guys, if you have any question, you can send it to chat or raise your hand. We have one question that at what stage we should start data migration and data mapping when designing a solution?
We should start during basically right from this requirements gathering exercise where during the early life cycle of the solution. So it's during the initialization part. We should engage the data migration lead, and both at customer side and also at the partner side. And as you go along the project during the build phase, you define the data templates, and then basically do an iteration, a series of iteration. Yeah, and make sure at every build, at every sprint cycle, you perform those.
Okay, and okay, we have someone hand raised. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that's me. So another question, Faiz, and this is normally a real life example. So when we are dealing with the business and designing the solution, they are coming with the requirements which require a lot of customization. Um, so as a solution architect, what is the normal response? How should we deal where we are saying that that's the customization, which is not the recommended way. Rather, we influence them to change the processes, the way they are handling it. So how do you deal with it and what is the best practices?
Sure. So the best practice is that we understand those requirements. We prioritize them. Basically, whether it's critical requirement, we find out from this, like whether it if we do that customization, will it produce the ROI? Um, and once we have vetted the requirement, we may have removed the requirement by now because it was an obsolete requirement from a legacy system that no longer is there, or this requirement is so complex and basically you don't need to implement because in the new system you have a standard out of the box way. So we should try to persuade to use out of the box. Dynamics has its own boundaries. Uh, but yes, so this is why yeah, focus on the out of the box, less customization. Sometimes you really need to do customization, and in that, as long as there is a business value and yeah, business return, then we should proceed with it and make sure they are signed off, and they are part of MVP. So if they are could have or nice to have requirements and it's a large complex, we should really push back on that. But if it is a must have and return and business needs that critically, then we look at customizing. Um, and this is where, this is all part of solution is visioning. So you look at basically mapping into Dynamics business apps or move to more Power Automate, Canvas app solutions, or move to more Azure-based solutions.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And I got another question, just behalf of everyone, I guess. What is the recommendation if one's want to be a solution architect? How can he be a solution architect? What he should be doing it, and what is the route? So, what is the advice here, please?
So yes, sure. So solution architect, everyone is a born solution architect. You can be a functional architect. You can be a technical architect. If you are a technical savvy, as a solution architect, you don't need to be expert in everything. You need to know things, but you don't need to be expert. So make sure that you are looking into blogs, follow the latest, Microsoft features, and new features. For example, last week I was looking for these managed solutions Microsoft has provided. So you need to keep yourself updated so that you have this extra skill set. If someone asks you a question, you can clearly search and focus and provide a solution in a business way. Being a solution architect, you don't need to be a technical solution architect because it's more on the dynamic side. We need to be looking on more on business solution architect, where you solve business problems rather than giving them a technical solution. So
Brilliant. Thank you. That was me.
some more questions. Peep has asked how to become a fast track solution architect. So fast track solution architect, I think I'm perhaps could be only one in Pakistan right now, but basically you need to be working for a partner. You need to have at least three large scale enterprise projects implemented. Um, and you need to be working with the fast track team, and the fast track team will vet your basically solution throughout. They will go through right from the initialization to build, operate, or basically deploy and operate all phases by fast track team have been involved, and they have vetted your solutions. And And yeah, that's the part. There is also a very good success by design by the fast track team. I normally use it for all my implementations. They're very nice presentations, strategies. You pick up anything, data migration strategies. It has the best practices there. Or you're looking for integration, you're looking for this gap analysis. They have very good requirements there, or basically set of templates that you can have meaningful workshop with the business.
Excellent.
Great.
Faiz,
We also have
there
one
is,
question
yeah.
from Arafat Tehseen. She's saying, thanks, Faiz, for the informative session. We have got a large scale projects spanning beyond just a business application stack. In your opinion, what other technical skills should an architect have to model the solution in a better way?
Right. So yeah, so you have a large scale implementation which will be going beyond the normal by the Microsoft business application. So Microsoft has got this concept called solution envisioning, where you start with the business apps. You have set of requirements and you map it to customer service, field service, sales, or basically if it's ERP, look at basically finance or supply chain modules. Uh, but if your requirements cannot be mapped, then you need to look beyond it. So more start with Power Automate, Canvas app solutions. And if they cannot be met, then you move beyond that and move to more Microsoft Azure way. So look at, for example, there's a data requirement, there's a data lake, and you need a data platform. So you don't want to build data platform within Dynamics. You need to build outside of Dynamics. So this is where you focus on using Microsoft Azure and stream analytics, data analytics solutions. Yes, if you have large integration, you don't need to write those integrations within plugins because plugins will time out. So it's not recommended. You need to look at in one of the slides I showed you, implement microservices architecture. So you don't need to be an expert. These microservices can be written in any language. It could be written in Python or any language, and it can be even hosted outside in basically outside of Azure as well. So yeah, does it answer your question?
Okay, thank you, Faiz, for answering all the questions in so detail. So, yes, that's all. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faiz, for joining us, and especially coming down all the way from UK to Pakistan for the kickoff event as well and giving the session. So much appreciated for your time and the support to the community.
Thank you. Thank you
All
all.
right. So, Roj, who is next now?